Good morning, everybody. It's LSP. It's currently the 17th of May, 2022. Before we get into the charts today, I just want to quickly go over to a couple of articles that I kind of perused over this morning. Digital euro could come as soon as 2026. And then obviously, I'm sure many of us over here in the UK are aware of this. The UK Treasury will push for stablecoin regulation. And this was actually discussed by Charles. He was talking about that, in the Queen's speech, which he did instead of the Queen. But they're really pushing now to kind of get this central bank digital currency done. Unless it's global, obviously, I believe every country is going to have its own central bank digital currency. And then in terms of regulation for stable coins and some of these other things that we are absolutely going to see in this cryptocurrency market, it is coming, and I'm going to be sort of monitoring this now going forward. I'm actually keeping an eye on the whole tax situation over here in the UK regarding stable coins and staking and how all of this is going to look, because they make it very difficult. To be fair, they do. They make it extremely difficult to keep on top of all of this stuff. It's one of those, we'll stick it on a website on the back end somewhere. We'll make you jump through hoops to get to it. And then when you don't see it, we'll just say, well, it was there, right? It is really, really difficult sometimes to keep abreast of all of this stuff. But having said that, I bring this up today, one, because we're going to keep an eye on it. Two, because it's something that absolutely is going to happen. The cryptocurrency market is going to be regulated. Now, to what degree, I don't know. Obviously, none of us do at this point, but we can guess based on previous history and previous sort of regulation by world governments that it's not going to be a pretty sight. So we'll keep an eye on it. And we'll see kind of how things unfold. The other sort of articles here, we've got Polygon and others extending helping hand, to Terra blockchains. This is something that I did see. Polygon and some of the other chains are actually reaching out to projects that are, that have been affected, by the Terra Luna situation, and kind of saying to them, look, if you come over to our chain, we'll kind of fund you, we'll give you, help, we'll help you transition quickly and so on. Which is, I think, to be honest, I think it's great. It's nice to see other chains and other, other parties stepping in to really, really help. You've got CZ from Binance as well doing the same. I won't go into the tweets and the details. Maybe I'll do it in the in the afternoon review. But if you just go to CZ's Twitter, you'll see that they have UST on hand, which they've never sold, and they've got Luna, which they've never sold, and they're talking about just kind of giving that back, to those who have been affected. Which again, I think it shows once again that the cryptocurrency market, is a good space and it's worth defending. Yeah. So let's go over to the charts and see what we're, where we're at this morning. Obviously, Bitcoin again continues to stabilize between 29 and 31,000. Not seeing much else in the way of, inflows. Apparently, and obviously, as I've been reading articles, I've been looking at the data. There is a lot of money supposedly coming into Bitcoin, but we're not seeing that reflected on the chart. Now, I did have a conversation with somebody yesterday who is saying to me, yes, but all of these inflows that are coming into Bitcoin, okay, it will affect the chart later down the line. It's not going to affect it now. It's just, stabilizing the price at the moment while Terra, were selling, their reserves of Bitcoin. Well, hang on a second. If that's the case, why is it the outflows, okay, on Ethereum absolutely affected the chart, all right? So in the end, when you have large influxes of money coming into an asset, regardless of however that comes in, ultimately it will do one of two things: create a stable price floor and obviously get price moving in said direction, right? So obviously in this case, money's flowing into Bitcoin and we should see some sort of reaction from that. Now, one can say, well, maybe this was the reaction down here, this little tail, that kind of mild capitulation and stabilized price from around about 25,000. And this is why price is doing what it's doing now. But I still expect to see a much larger response with such a huge amount of Bitcoin being accumulated by these whales and some institutions and whatnot. So I think at some point we are going to see that reaction, but it should have been a little bit more pronounced. Which brings me to my next point. And I'll just go back to, actually I'll go to the weekly. If this money's coming into Bitcoin as aggressively as we're being told it is, then if we kind of try to piece that together in terms of what we're actually seeing on the chart, we see stability. We see price stabilizing down here, like I said, between sort of 29 to 31,000. Okay, fine. But what does that look like going forward? Think about the range in terms of where price currently is all the way up to this high up here around about 48,000. Right? That's almost 60% of movement required to get back above this high and really start to get things moving. And remember, as you guys know, I don't just randomly put these boxes and lines on my chart. These are key levels that house a lot of liquidity. So for price to get from 30,620, which is current price right now, all the way to the first level of, I don't want to call it resistance, but the first level of liquidity, we're talking 37,000 to around about, let's say 40,000. That's going to require a huge amount of influx, of money coming into Bitcoin. That requires a lot of Bitcoin to be bought up, right, for price to even get there, right? And then you're talking about the price up here, around about 45,000 and upwards, right? So you need realistically, or we need realistically, a huge amount of money to come into Bitcoin, right, to get this thing moving to a point where we can say there's been a trend reversal and now we can start to expect prices to the upside. So this is why I'm always cynical. This is why I'm always a little bit cautious, always, complaining and moaning about confirmation and so on, because regardless of whatever we say or see, the end result is still the same. We look at these charts and we say, well, why are we not seeing the reflection on what we're being told? And again, this is why confirmation is so important, right? I'm not always right, of course not, but this is why confirmation is always right. Why confirmation is always important, right? Super important, because without confirmation, you're leaving yourself, or putting yourself in the anticipatory trading style, where you're just saying, okay, look, I'm just going to grab it and see what happens. I know there is a strategy in terms of Bitcoin, and if you genuinely believe in Bitcoin as a store of value and that it will have huge potential in the future because of scarcity and all of the stuff that they say, then that's fine. Your strategy may be to pick up Bitcoin at these levels because it's actually really cheap, which, to be fair, it is. But ultimately, I think for me, if Bitcoin, for example, really started to push to the upside and then it pulls back and it creates a really nice range, stability and all the good stuff, I'd prefer to just grab it at 33 or 34,000, knowing I've had all of that confirmation and the likelihood that it's going to continue going lower, sub 20,000, which is still on the cards and still potentially there, much less likely. So with all of that said, let's jump over to Binance. Binance is actually holding up pretty well. And I am really liking the way that Binance is forming. I am expecting, to be fair, you can see kind of the flow of Binance. Pretty quick reversal, and then it slowly starts to kind of grind, pick up of liquidity, and then I'm expecting this kind of right? Now that doesn't mean that's going to happen. This is another scenario. As you guys know, I like to create a lot of different scenarios in my head, plan everything out, and if it happens, or at least whichever one of those happens, will give me the indication that I need to adjust my thinking and then switch to whatever is happening at that moment. Now, as we can see, price has picked up buy side. Price is picking up buy side. It is accumulating a little bit of Binance down here. So that last push, if it happens, should get us around to, around sort of 34, should get us around 340, which would be a nice level. But again, any movement to the upside, any movement, whether it's on Bitcoin, Binance, Ethereum, whatever, is going to be met with, for me, caution, and I'm going to tread carefully, because ultimately, when we look at the higher time frames, weekly, for example, we can see, yes, we've had this move to the to the downside, but when we start to run back up, there's a lot in the way. There's a lot to stop this, so we have to be cautious that this downturn. Okay, so if we do start to rally a little bit from here, it will most likely be a rally to then continue going lower, because this is a downtrend now on the weekly chart, which is going to take a lot to to kind of switch that round. And again, key level is going to be 48,000 if we get up there. So with all of that said, I'm going to leave the review there. It's getting a little bit long. I should be around later in the evening. I kind of throw something out in the afternoon. And with that said, I hope everyone's having a fantastic morning or evening wherever you are in the world. And I look forward to speaking to you in the next update. Take care, guys. Ciao.